All right there, everyone. President Trump declares war on social media censorship. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. President Trump has indeed weighed in on the latest social media purge of conservative channels and videos and blogs. At a rally the other night in West Virginia, President Trump said that the First Amendment protections enjoyed by the so-called mainstream media apply equally to all citizen journalists and indeed all Americans on social media. Trump said that we are now going to stand up against this epidemic of social media censorship, this purging of conservative voices. He actually said, that he'd rather have fake news like CNN. He'd rather have their liberals and their socialists spewing their opinions freely than have anyone censored by these big tech companies and increasingly by financial institutions. I'm sure you've heard of MasterCard and Visa banning conservatives like Islam critic Robert Spencer from their financial services. So it's not just social media. And Coulter's pointed out that because the left controls the mainstream media in Hollywood and Wall Street and Silicon Valley and public education and universities, we really are seeing what is, in effect, a full court press assault on free speech, a coordinated effort among all of these institutions to quell any and all media activity they deem to be hateful and bigoted and intolerant and the like. The rules are today that you are allowed to hate the supposedly hateful. You're allowed to discriminate against the discriminator. You're allowed to be bigoted towards the supposed bigot, all defined, of course, in thoroughly left-wing liberal terms. This is why the whole notion of ending discrimination is so absurd. It's never, ever a question of whether we are going to have discrimination versus non-discrimination. It's never, ever a question of whether we're going to have inclusion versus exclusion. It's always a question of what kinds of new forms of discrimination are you planning on implementing and perpetuating? What new forms of exclusion is going to be put forward? It's always a question of new forms of inclusion and exclusion, discrimination and non-discrimination. At the very least, you're going to be discriminating against discrimination, right? You're going to be bigoted towards bigotry, right? I think you get the point. And so President Trump recognizes this, and he's weighing in on all of this and saying, look, we have to apply the First Amendment holistically to everyone in an internet age. He said that every one of us is like a newspaper, right? You have Twitter, you have Facebook. You can't have censorship. You can't pick one person and say, well, we don't like what he's been saying. He's out. So he says we're going to have to live with fake news. We believe in the right of all Americans to speak their mind. And this has it's becoming increasingly the mainstream opinion right now that social media outlets like Twitter, Facebook, Google, they are an extension of the public square. Actually, there's legal precedent for this, right? There was a judge who ruled recently that Trump couldn't ban people who were trolling his Twitter account because Twitter is, in effect, a public forum. And that would be a violation of the free speech. So there is legal precedent for what we're talking about here. Now, in terms of President Trump's involvement, we predicted this was going to happen. We predicted that the social media purge of conservative, nationalist, populist voices was only going to fuel the populist revolt. We saw this with Tommy Robinson and his imprisonment. We saw this with Alex Jones. Anytime the left seeks to silence the right through authoritarian measures, it only increases populist sentiments. Anytime the left seeks to stifle the free speech of the right, it only makes them look ridiculously authoritarian. And it makes the right end up looking like martyrs. And this is because of the nature of populism itself. What all populists have in common is a deep-seated distrust, indeed an all-out effort to, frankly, bring down what they would call the elites or the establishment, which simply put are those in charge of the major political, corporate, and media-based institutions that operate in accordance with their own interests and not the interests of the people, the citizens, the interests of the nation and its greater good. They have no problem selling out the nation and its citizens or democratic elections for their own benefit. And they're the reason we're all in this political and economic and propaganda mess in the very first place. So populism is deeply anti-establishment, deeply anti-deep state, deeply anti-elite and the like. So make no mistake, this conservative purge from social media is precisely the kind of thing that evokes populist backlashes. And now with Alex Jones getting millions of new subscribers and alt tech platforms like BitChute, Minds, and Gab, join us there, of course, getting more and more traffic. And now, of course, with President Trump promising to crack down on social media censorship, we are actually seeing the rise of a mass populist backlash come to fruition. Not only that, but as we pointed out in another video, there's another reason why this is a war that the liberal left simply can't win. In order for the liberal left to successfully win this war, they have to deny their own liberalism. I think that's so key to get. In order for the liberal left to successfully win this war, they have to deny their own liberalism. The liberal claim is that liberalism is all about giving people the freedom to express themselves and to be themselves as autonomous individuals. It's liberalism that stands for your right to express yourself, as the Madonna song says, right? To live your life the way you choose. And so what do you think is going to happen when liberals begin to appear to more and more act like moralistic dictators who want to deny your freedom of choice? What do you think people are going to make of self-professed liberals intentionally silencing and purging and banning certain programs that my lifestyle enjoys? What precisely is liberal about censoring certain ideas and people and personalities from the public square simply because they seem hateful and misogynist or bigoted to liberals? The moment liberals attempt to silence and sequester and dictate which ideas are allowed and which are not, they are not liberals anymore. By definition, they are tyrants. They are totalitarians. They are authoritarians. And that is why liberals cannot win this war. The only way liberals can win this online culture war, as it were, is if they stop being liberals, which means, of course, that they've lost before they've even begun. You see, with every purge, with every Twitter suspension, with every call to ban and censor, more and more people realizing that liberals are emphatically not liberal. There's nothing liberal about them. There's nothing liberating about censoring and purging and banning. There's a radical contradiction, a massive dissonance between the liberals' stated ideology and their demonstrable actions, which more and more clash with what we call lifestyle values that so dominates modern contemporary society. And if it's a choice between my own lifestyle values, which says that I get to decide what I listen to and like for myself, if it's a choice between my lifestyle values and dictatorial liberalism, my lifestyle values are going to win every single time. So the liberal left is putting themselves really in an impossible situation. They actually are pitting themselves willfully, explicitly, intentionally pitting themselves against free speech. They're actually openly advocating the silencing of speech. They're explicitly defending the notion of silencing ideas and people and platforms on the grounds that most people happen to agree with their definitions of hate and bigotry. And it's not going to work. People are not going to give up their lifestyle values simply because you, the liberal, don't like their decisions. So President Trump's decision to jump into the mix is just the latest indicator that the liberal left is destined to lose this battle. The social media purge is doing nothing more than awakening a populist giant throughout the world that cannot any longer be silenced. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below and become a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of awesome conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.